Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Vinyl Then, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today I'm going to talk about 5 of the best sounding albums in my record collection. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you go check all those out. There's links for the Vinyl Then Facebook group, for the Vinyl Then merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music weekly playlist that we put together, and of course also the Patreon page. So make sure you go check all that out. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the old thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit the notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. I know I've talked about Analog Productions a lot over the last couple of years on the channel, but that's because they do incredible work. 3 of the 5 albums I'm going to talk about today are Analog Productions releases. You know, I think if you take Analog Productions and compare them to, say, Mobile Fidelity or some of the other, audiophile releases or audiophile labels out there, I think when you factor in the packaging and sound quality, overall sound quality, I think Analog Productions just hands down does a better job than everyone else. I think they're just one of the best sounding labels out there. And QRP is one of the best pressing plants in the world. And that's one big bonus that Analog Productions has over pretty much everyone else out there. So this is something that's actually been asked to me several times over the last couple of years, really ever since I started the YouTube channel here. And to be completely honest, I don't have a massive audiophile record collection. I do have some great sounding albums though, and I kind of go over some of the ones that I think are the best sounding in my collection. But make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what albums you guys have out there that you think are absolutely fantastic sounding. Because it's something like this, a topic like this is so very subjective. There's really no right or wrong answer to any of this. I will say with the first one though, the first one's kind of cheating because it's a UHQR release, so you figure all the UHQRs are going to sound fantastic. At least I think I've got 3 of them. I've got the Miles Davis Kind of Blue. I've got the Jimi Hendrix Are You Experienced. But the best sounding one, I think, to me, at least compared to the original pressing of this album, because I do have original pressings of this album, I've got remastered pressings of this album, and then the UHQR. But the album, of course, is Jethro Tull's Aqualung. And the thing is with Aqualung with me, and this album is notorious for, not being recorded. It wasn't the best sounding album when it was first recorded. And it wasn't mastered all that well originally either. So when Steve Wilson came around, what was it? I think it was 2011 when Steve Wilson did the remix of it. It was a big improvement on it. And, I've ever since that Steve Wilson remix came out, I've considered that like the definitive version of Aqualung until I heard this. And this is all from the original master recordings. Analog Productions did an incredible job with this album. Just really kind of cleaning it up and making that original version stand out over top of even the Steve Wilson remix. So this was released back in 2020. It's a double LP. It's 45 RPM. It's on Clarity vinyl, so it's on virgin vinyls. There's no coloring or additives added to the album. And for an album that was recorded back in 1971, it's a beautiful pressing, and it sounds like, the band is playing there live right in front of you. So if you get the opportunity to pick up one of these UHQRs, it's absolutely worth it. I will say that, all the ones, like I said, of the 3 that I have, this is definitely the best sounding one to me, especially compared to those older pressings. Like I said, I've got 3 or 4 copies of this album, and this one, to me at least, is hands down the best sounding one. Another Analog Productions release that I have that I've got multiple copies of, and I was really able to go back when I got this one and do A, B, and C comparisons to, and really kind of make sure, and really kind of find out what the best sounding pressing that I have at least is. And the album is August and Everything After by Counting Crows. It's been one of my favorite albums since it was first released back in 1993. The Analog Productions release, it's a double LP, 45 RPM. And I've got 2 other pressings of this album. Neither one are original pressings. They're both reissues. But we really kind of go back and do an A-B comparisons with them. This one just sounds so much better. It's a lot more quiet than those other reissues are. It's a better sound stage, I think, than what anything else that you're going to get from those other pressings. I will say that this is, as far as like comparisons with other albums, with the Aqualung release, there's a big difference between the Steve Wilson, the original pressing, and the UHQR. I will say it's a much more subtle difference with the August and everything after. Even though this one definitely does sound better, it's not as big of a difference than say that Aqualung release is. But it's another album that if you're able to track down, I know these are definitely kind of pricey. I think the last time I saw one of these for sale, because it's no longer in print. This was back in 2012 when Analog Productions released this one. So it's definitely, kind of hard to find. And when you do find them, they tend to run around $100 or so. But, if you got the money to shell out for it, it's definitely worth it, in my opinion, because it is a great sounding album. The third and final Analog Productions release that I got on the list today is one that I don't have any other copies of it to compare to. And I don't think it's ever been released on vinyl other than the Analog Productions release, but it is an incredible sounding album. And that is Roger Waters' Amused to Death. This was an album that I didn't really get into until within the last couple of years. It was released back in 2015. It's double LP, 45 RPM, pressed to QRP. So the quality is there. The packaging is there. It's got a nice thick gatefold on it. Like I said, the presentation you get from these Analog Productions releases are top notch. And this is an album, like I said, I'd never really dug into until within the last couple of years. And I was really kind of surprised how great it sounded. It's a dead silent album. It's another one of those instances where it sounds like you've got the full band, standing right in front of you and playing. Just the separation between the instruments is incredible. It's just a great sounding album. It's a great sounding experience, which if you're familiar at all with Roger Waters and his music, that's kind of the experience he wants you to have with his music. And it's one that if you're able to track down this one, I think this one's still available on Analog Productions website, but it's a great album. So I really didn't intend to talk about Analog Productions that much. It's just those three albums are absolutely incredible sounding. But these last two I got, I think, are equally as incredible as those first three. This first one might surprise some of you. You guys probably don't know. I am a pretty big fan of the Beatles. And, of course, that is the White Album, released back in 1968. This is the 50th anniversary release. It's has-been mastered by Giles Martin, and he's done an incredible job with these Beatles releases. Of course, he did the White Album. He did Abbey Road. He's done Let It Be. He just did the new Revolver also, which I've got the new version of Revolver. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, but I'm sure it sounds great because he's done great jobs with those other releases. But I think of all the Beatles releases that he's done, I think this is the one that had the biggest improvement, overall sound quality wise. And that's kind of coming from someone that's never been a huge fan of the White Album. I've always kind of considered it, a little kind of overrated. I mean, it is obviously a great classic album, but I feel like there's some, kind of filler tracks on here that I could kind of do without. But what Giles Martin does or did with this album is just incredible. The difference from I don't have an original pressing. I think I've got a pressing from like the mid 70s, but the improvement from that album to this is just night and day. Just the kind of overall clarity, it just has the same thing with all these other albums I've talked about. Just the overall just quietness of the album, especially with this album in particular. The quieter parts of the album just sound really, really kind of crisp. And it's just a great overall listening experience from beginning to end. Even though, like I said, some of those tracks I can kind of do without. But, what Giles did is just beautiful. The last one on my list will probably come as no surprise to a lot of you out there. It's an album I've talked a lot about since it was first released a couple months back. Of course, that is the 2018 remix of Pink Floyd's Animals. And this is really kind of interesting. I will say that I know there's been a ton of quality control issues with this pressing. I've got the single LP release of it, and it, like a lot of you out there, it's got a lot of pops and clicks in it, but it's not over the top. There's several. There's probably maybe 2 or 3 that are like really kind of noticeable. And then a couple that are a little more buried in the background of it, which it wasn't bad enough that I had to return it. But I will say I got the box set. I got a great deal on this from Amazon. And this is just an absolutely dead silent version of it. It's a beautiful, pristine version. But the funny thing is with Animals, when it was originally released back in 1977, it always kind of had that almost kind of grimy kind of sound to it, a dingier kind of sound, and I feel like it really kind of fit the overall kind of aesthetic of the album. It kind of really fit with the whole idea behind the music. And then, so when they announced that this was coming out, so in 2018, James Guthrie, Joel Plant, and Bernie Grundman remixed it all from the original analog tapes. And when I first heard about it, I'm like, there's not, I don't have a problem with the way the original album sounds. And then I listened to this. And this is such a night and day difference compared to the earlier pressings of this album. I've got an original pressing from 77. I've got a French pressing from 77. I also have the 2016 remaster that James Guthrie did. And I don't think I'll ever really listen to any of those ever again because of how great this new remix sounds. Like I said, the original mix of this album was always kind of muddier, and it's nowhere close to that with this new one. There's beautiful separation between all the instruments. I think it's really noticeable on the drums and the bass on this album. It just it was always kind of buried in the background on those earlier mixes. And with this one here, it just on full display. The entire band just sounds absolutely incredible. And like I said, I don't know if I'll ever go back and really listen to any of those other mixes. Like I said in the beginning, a topic like this is super subjective. It really has to do with personal interests, musical interests, your home setup, the kind of music you enjoy, how you enjoy that music. There's so many different factors that go into deciding what are the best sounding albums in your collection. But I want to know what you guys think. Drop me a comment down below. Let me know what albums you guys have that you think are the best sounding in your collections. Make sure you let me know what pressings they are, what year they came out, so I can kind of go back and look them up, and other people can look them up also, because I'm always kind of fascinated by this kind of stuff and what makes people think that certain albums sound better than others. So let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. And that's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.